Hello and welcome to another edition of the Eternal Journey. I'm Resolves, and this is the newest addition to the new player series where we're going to be taking a look at today. It's going to be a control deck from start to finish where you could probably build it in the first couple of days to week of playing. Then next up we'll be able to get it after a couple of weeks, and then after that it's going to be sort of the end point for this deck. Though this deck is slightly different in that it does give you the ability to branch off into a couple of different styles of decks, so I'll be listing those at the end as well, just so you can see what you're really getting yourself in for here. So we'll start off with the beginner version of the deck. So people have been requesting that we did a control deck because the Chalice control isn't quite what people are looking at when they're sort of coming from other traditional card game backgrounds. And they prefer something a lot more like this, which is a lot more sort of draw go and then win eventually with some sort of dragon later in the game. So I was thinking about first maybe we try Fel, but that is really difficult to sort of make on a budget for a new play because it really does require the Black Sky Harbinger and maybe your choice of either Rindra or the Jolt and Feast Call. So that's what led me to really decide that we should probably be playing Hooru, and Hooru does really open up later on those primarily carrier decks. So let's take a look at this deck list and see what we're building towards. So the rares for this deck, we've got our Harsh Rule, Channel Tempest, and some Thunderstrike Dragons. So we do have the 6 rares at the end here, which are going to be your win condition, and Channeler Tempest is a pretty exciting card. This costs 8, requires 4 primal influence, and it will allow you to draw 3 cards and then deal the damage equal to the number of cards in hand to either target. So it could be a creature if you really need to use it as a removal spell in a pinch, but for the most part it's going to be chaining these to kill your opponent over the course of like 2 turns once you've got the game fully locked up and your hand's fully stocked with cards, and now you're just able to seal the game and just finish it. We've also got the Thunderstrike Dragon, which actually helps out the channel because the Thunderstrike Dragon has got Echo, which means that if you would draw it, instead you draw 2 copies. So when you play the first one, your opponent's probably likely to have an answer for it, but the second one or even the third and fourth one are just going to be lights out for most opponents. Thunderstrike Dragon is also really good in a bunch of matchups because it is just able to block and it will help you to stabilise the board. It's also having slight synergy with another of the cards in the deck, which is the Second Sight. Second Sight allows you to draw 2 cards and you put a card from your hand on top of your deck, so you get to get a little bit of extra value here because this will draw you a card and then allow you to be able to draw an extra dragon by putting one of those dragons on top of your deck. But it does also have synergy with some other cards in the deck, as it's also pretty great with the Jolt and Hurler because it will help you to trigger the Jolt and Hurler's Fate ability. So Fate is, if you would draw this card, this thing happens. So with the Jolt and Hurler, when you draw it, you will create and draw a snowball, which is an additional card, which is going to be a 1-cost spell that's going to deal 1 damage to any target. So could be useful for popping Aegis on opponent's units before you want to play this Harsh Rule. It can also just really add up as being able to do a little bit of damage or just more cards in hand for later on when you want to try and win the game with that Channeler Tempest. So onto the last rare in the deck, we've got the Harsh Rule here, and this is just your main sweeper and it will just kill all units, no questions asked. Of course Aegis does get in the way of that, but we are going to be trying to solve the Aegis problem because we do have the Jolt and Hurler in here just to get us those snowballs, and we've also got the Duelist Blade, which is going to be able to get in there and just punch a couple of Aegis units as well. So Harsh Rule is pretty much a staple that you do want to be crafting, and so is the Channeler Tempest. Thunderstrike Dragon is something that you probably want to get around to at some point. It's not a super staple, but in this style of deck this is going to be a really good beefy win condition. This also got quite a good amount of synergy within it as well. It is just like a bunch of removal spells and card draw, but we've got underlying synergies. We've got the Throne Wardens in here, which is, if you play Magic the Gathering, it's a lot like an Obstinate Bailiff, where it's just like a huge body that's going to gain you some lives, or in this case armor, but the armor's also got other effects in this deck because if you're able to play a Duelist Blade and then play a Throne Warden, you're going to have a 4/8 weapon, which is really hard for your opponent to deal with. You're going to be able to use this Duelist Blade to then kill perhaps 2 or 3 of your opponent's units, or maybe even just deal a bunch of damage to the face, making your channels a lot more lethal. I've also, because we have got the Throne Warden, I decided to stick in a cheaper weapon as well, because the talent of Nostrix is not only quite good in the early game, just being able to like shoot down one of the opponent's like 2/2s or 2/1s, but later in the game, when you pair it with the Throne Warden, it is going to perhaps be able to chew for a few more. We've also got the Second Sight over here and the Strategize, which both work really well with the Echo and Fate cards, because if you're in a matchup where the Snowball's no good, you can effectively use that with the Strategize, putting the Snowball on the bottom of your deck, and using the Strategize basically just a 2-cost draw to. So Strategize is going to draw you 2 cards, and then that allows you to put a card that is either no good or you don't need, so any superfluous power you get to put on the bottom of your deck. I've got the Auric Sentry as well in here. Just decided to slot this in because this is quite a nice body when you first start to play, as it is a 1/5 with Endurance and Warcry. So Endurance means that attacking doesn't exhaust it, so it will ready at the end of your turn, so you're able to attack and block with it. And also with it just having 1 power, your opponent's quite prone to just block this for 2/2, and then you're able to just hit him with one of your Jordan Hurler snowballs and just finish the unit off. As well as the Warcry has been quite nice here. We don't have many units, so the Warcries are going to hit something that's quite impactful. So it can either hit like the Jordan Hurler, which is like the worst case scenario, but we've also got like the Throne Warden, which is really nice at wearing Warcries because it does have that Aegis. And the Thunderstrike Dragons, if you Warcry on the Thunderstrike Dragon, that will affect both copies. And of course, relic weapons like the Jewel's Blade and the Talon Nostrix, if you're able to get Warcries on those are really great. So the Auric Sentry gets to do double duty there. It's not very offensive, but it was able to set up more offensive plays later on, as well as just being quite a resilient and offensive unit. We've also got Lightning Storms in the deck, and as you've just started playing, Lightning Storms are going to be quite good, but you do want to upgrade these to Hailstorms, and I'll tell you more about that in the upgraded version of this deck. But Lightning Storm's really great. It does tidying up a board of lots of small tokens or smaller units, and just often you're able to play this, just kill a bunch of units, and they should be able to stabilize the game from there. I've elected to play Island's Favour just because the Face Aegis is quite important, and Island's Favour will allow you to gain an Aegis, which means that any of your opponent's burn spells, or if they've got any discard, they'll have to try and use it twice because the first one will be blocked by the Face Aegis. I've also got a Sick Power in here just as sort of a third copy of Island's Favour, but this one will help you to pick whether you want the Justice or the Primal Source. Got a bunch of good removal as well, because we've got spot removal like Permafrost is really good, and that's just going to slow down your opponent, and it's really cheap as well. So often you're going to play this and your opponent is going to have spent more on whatever unit you're Permafrosting. It's also cheap just to use it to pop an Aegis before you chuck down the Harsh Rule. As well as to protect ourselves from bigger units, we do have Vanquish and Island's Choice. Island's Choice is a modal card, so it's got 2 options you can use for it. You can use it to either negate an enemy big spell, so if you're playing against another deck that's got Channel Tempest, you're able to counter that, or it also protects you from big attacking units. So this will kill an attacking enemy unit with 4 power or more. Wisdom Elders is basically the divination in this game, and this will draw you 2 cards at instant speed, so you can often just have a lot more information before you make a lot of your plays. But overall, I really like this deck, and I think you could probably do quite well with it. It's also got the Lightning Strikes in here, which are another defensive spell here that will do 4 damage to an attacking enemy, and if you're able to also block with the Auric Sentry, then you're able to do a little bit extra damage here. Okay, so let's look at the upgraded version of the deck, where we're going to be sort of trying to build towards. Okay, so this is the upgraded version of the deck. I've decided here to include the Hailstorms. This is just a placeholder. If you've not got the campaign, and these come from the Dead Reckoning campaign, then you can still play the Lightning Storms. That's perfectly fine. It's just the Hailstorm are a lot better in a bunch of matchups, but because your deck has got Strategize in it, if the Lightning Storms are bad, then you just get to put them on the bottom of your deck. I do like Lightning Storm anyway because it does pair sort of well with the Jordan Hurler, so you can play Lightning Storm plus a Snowball to perhaps tidy up what your opponent's doing. Though it doesn't really have the same impact as Hailstorm, because Hailstorm, often if you have 2 of these, you can keep them in bigger mid-range matchups because 2 Hailstorms will still be an effective additional copy of the Harsh Rule. But because you have the Harsh Rule, then maybe you can sort of wait until you've completed the deck list before you get those Hailstorms. But those are from the these are from the Dead Reckoning campaign. Well, we've also gone up a Thunderstrike Dragon just to have more additional win conditions in the deck. But this isn't compulsory, it's just something that I personally prefer. And to go along with the Throne Warden package we've got in here, we've gone up to the full playset of 4. We've gone down on Jewel's Blade a little bit. Jewel's Blade is a really good card. You're going to summon this, it's going to give you a Face Aegis, which is sort of really valuable if your opponents are playing burn spells or anything that's going to interact with you in any way. But we've decided to make the full playset of Auric Runehammer. Now, Auric Runehammer does look sort of strictly worse than Jewel's Blade because it's got less toughness, but on the turn that you play, you're going to be invulnerable to damage, so you can use this to kill one of your opponent's 4/4s, but then you'll keep the Runehammer and you won't have taken any damage, and you'll be free to do the same thing on the next turn. So the Runehammer is really good with the Throne Warden because you are able to turn it into a 4/5, but as you're trying to work up between the two, you can perhaps just play a mix, so you can play like 3 Runehammers and 2 Jewel's Blades while you're trying to craft them, but the Runehammers are a staple of the format right now. Not much else has changed in this deck list, but as we have added like the 5 rares here with the Auric Runehammer and the extra Thunderstrike Dragon, I felt like this was different enough that you might want to look at it here. And of course we have removed the 1/5 Minotaurs because I feel like with the Green Hammer will just become more of the control deck, and we're going to be less focused on the early units and just trying to sweep things up, especially now we've got access to the Hailstorms. So let's take a look at the completed version of the deck. Okay, so this is the completed version of the deck, and what you'll probably find out if you're doing some research is that there's a lot you can actually do with the Hooru clan as a control deck, and what you want to be trying to find out is your win conditions. So I've selected here for a Sword of the Sky King, which is often just lights out. This is the giant metal donga from the sky and will end a lot of games for you on the spot, especially as you're able to pair it with the Throne Wardens. And now we've got the Sword of the Sky King in the deck, I've decided to add some Emerald Waystones as well, because these will help you to just gain a little bit incremental pieces of armor along the way. But for the most part, what Sword of the Sky King will do is this will really show up your control matchups, as you'll just be sat there with a huge threat that your opponent's going to have a really hard time to be able to answer. And if they try to answer it by making units to block, then you've got spells like Harsh Rule and Vanquish that are going to be able to get rid of that. So of course now we're going to be a lot more weapon focused. The Permafrosts are a lot less exciting, but we do have the Eye of Winter, and Eye of Winter is a really exciting card because once per turn you get to pay 2, and that's going to stun an enemy unit, and that's going to sort of force your opponent to overextend into your Hailstorms and your Harsh Rules, and just allow you to pick them off one by one with your Auric Green Hammers while you sat behind like a bunch of cards draw from Wisdom of the Elders. Now Eye of Winter is perhaps a card I would have played earlier on, in one of the earlier versions, but I was trying to keep our rares tight just to keep the budget sort of fair, because the control decks can be quite spendy. I did get some feedback where people just wanted to try out the control decks because they played games like Magic, and that's the sort of gameplay that they're used to and the sort of gameplay that they like to play. And that's what this series is about. It's about not just giving you the conventional wisdom of, hey, build this beatdown deck, whether you like it or not. Those sort of decks aren't for everyone. And I know that if when I was playing that I got handed one of those decks, that I probably wouldn't have still been playing now. But this kind of deck is right up my alley. So the win condition of choice going for here is actually the Island Clammover. And this is a lot of text, but basically this is going to be lights out for your opponent because it's got flying endurance, and generally huge bodies that have got endurance are really difficult for your opponent to deal with, and it's got flying as well, so it's going to be incredible for them to have to try and get over this. And when this enters play, it's going to silence 2 enemy units, which has got synergy with its next ability, which is the ultimate ability. So you get to play this once, and this is pay 8 to give Island +2/+2, and she deals 6 damage to each enemy unit without battle skill. So this is probably going to tag 2 of the units already that she's just silenced, as well as anything else like tokens or cards that don't have text but just good stats are going to get destroyed by this. Now Island isn't 100% a staple here. You can of course still play the Thunderstrike Dragons, and for the most part I still would. But this is just giving you an idea of where you could spend some of those Shiftstone to what sort of legendaries you're going to be liking. The Alchemist as well also works well with another card called the Raka Queen's Guard. And this is a card from the Dead Reckoning expansion here, which is a campaign that you should probably be picking up because this has also got the Hailstorm in it. And Draka Queen's Guard works really well with Island because when Daraka's in play, whenever you were playing Island, Island gets Aegis, which means it's going to be even more difficult for your opponent to deal with her. And the Draka Queen's Guard is also just quite a good body because it's a 7/7 for 6 with Overwhelm, which is already quite good, and it's going to stun an enemy unit for as long as you control Draka Queen's Guard. And this is going to really stabilise boards for you, especially if you're going to be able to use like a bunch of spot removal to sort of get the game up to a lot more parity and then just be able to turn over the game and just take over. We do also have an extra rain here, and this is sometimes seen and sometimes not in the Hooru deck, but I generally do quite like it because if we are able to back up what's going on with Harsh Rule, then Staff of Stories is great because generally this is going to give you like an extra 4 life when you play it, but also at the start of your turn you're going to draw an extra card, and that's going to really help you to just hit all of your power drops, and then you're just going to be able to finish off the game with the Island Clammover, Throne Warden, Sword of the Sky King, whatever it is that you want to end the game with. But it's also got a nice bit of synergy with the Channel the Tempest, and it also gives you something to do with the armor from Throne Warden. So Throne Warden plus the Staff of Stories is basically gain 9 life, and then it's going to be really difficult for your opponent to deal that 9 damage to be able to take that weapon off you. Okay, so I mentioned earlier that this style of deck does open up a couple of different paths for you to go. So I'm going to show you the sort of more favourite of mine first, and then I'm going to get into the more realistic one. Okay, so this is Nostrix Porter, also known as Almost There, and when you play this deck you'll see why, because that's what the little Cliffside Porter likes to shout. So this is a combo deck which is sort of based around playing a Nostrix, and Nostrix when it enters play is going to mentor a unit, which means it's going to exhaust it, and it will give the student an each copy in your hand and deck +5/+5. So Here's the cliffside part, which is usually what you want to be mentoring with the Nostrix. So after Nostrix has happened, you're just going to have a deck full of 5/6 for 1s with Echo, so every time you would draw 1, you instead draw 2. And this is just a really fun deck. It's also really effective on ladder. You've got a couple of tutors in here because you've got the Crouch Press Gang, and in a pinch you can use this as a Nostrix target because it does have revenge, so you get a little bit extra value out of it. But also this, when it summons, it will draw a 1-cost unit of your choice from your deck, and that'll be the Cliffside Porter, and you'll draw 2 of them. So this brings you a lot closer to the Nostrix Lord of Visions, and of course with it having Echo, make sure Channel the Tempest a lot more effective. So a lot of this deck is around just sort of staying alive, so we've got cards like Hailstorm and Harsh Rule, so we've got the Eye of Winter just to keep the opponent locked down. And what we really want to be doing is just using a bunch of our card draw to get us towards our place where we've actually got a Cliffside Porter in hand. So on turn 7, we're able to play a Cliffside Porter and then play the Nostrix on top of it to be able to mentor it, and then we're able to start winning the game really quickly from there, just because we're able to just turn the corner with these huge 5/6s. And on top of that, I've also got a 5/7 flyer in play, which is just really good at being able to defend you for that turn whilst you're sort of defenseless because you have just spent all 7 power, as well as just being a really good offensive threat because it's a 5-power flyer, which should be able to end the game quite quickly, especially when backed up with Channel the Tempest. So I've been a little bit spendy in this deck as well because I've got the off-color crests, and that's just to get more scout in the deck, just because this is going to really help you to chuck away cards that you don't need. Like if you see power on top of your deck but you don't need it, you're able to bottom it. But it also helps you to find the other pieces of your sort of combo, so to speak, because you are able to try and help look for the Nostrix Lord of Visions. I've also got the Second Sight in here as well. And this is quite effective with the Cliffside Porters because it's just going to mean that not only is this a card draw sort of cantrip spell, it's going to help us to find the Nostrix, but when we find out Cliffside Porter, it's going to help us have more of them. And if you do have like a really excessive amount of Cliffside Porters in your hand, you can just chuck them down as like illusory walls against your opponent, where you just play it as just like a blocker that's going to get in the way for a turn to buy you some time. But overall, this is one of my favourite decks, and it is quite effective on the ladder as it does beat up on a good number of decks, because any deck that's got Hailstorm and Harsh Rule in it is going to be really effective against unit-based decks, and you are able to end the game quite quickly as well. So once you've got control with the Nostrix going on, you are able to just flip that switch and just say to your opponent, right, the game's over now, and I'm not going to make you sit here for like an hour like you would in maybe some more traditional control decks. I'm just going to end the game, and we're going to go over to the next one. But perhaps what we're more interested in is a deck that's a little bit more popular on the ladder, and that is the Primal Carrier. So this is Primal Carrier, and there's a player called Trumpets who generally is, I think, the best Primal Carrier player, and they have the best results in the ETS. So this is one of their deck lists for it, and I do really like this. So you can see that a lot of the cards have actually sort of moved over. We have the Auric Runehammer still, the Throne Wardens, and the Sword of the Sky King. We've got a couple of inclusions here. They're going to be working towards the Ikari the Liberator and the Starsteel Die Show. Now you don't have to craft all 4 Ikaris at once. You can just sort of start off with 1 or 2 because we do have a tutor for them here. We've got Rise to the Challenge, which is effectively more copies of Ikari when you need them, or also other weapons as well. So in a lot of matchups you'll often just rise for Runehammer just to be able to have a 6-power weapon that's going to be able to kill something like a Sandstorm Titan, or just be really effective and cheap at just being able to sort of deal a lot of damage to the opponent, as well as just keeping the board clear whilst you're trying to find something else like a Ikari or a Sword of the Sky King just to finish them off. As we can see, the power base doesn't change too much as well. The only real difference here is the Crest of Fury. You can play without the Crest if you really want, as a playset of Crest does cost the same as a Legendary, so if you prefer a Legendary, do that. Of course, I would sort of recommend everyone craft the Crest first, because the power base is one of the most important pieces of any deck. As you'll see, if you look at like Praxis playing against Xenon, then the deck with the Crest is probably going to win that most of the time. Of course, the Ikaris are big and flashy, so I can't fault you if you wanted to craft them first, but for the most part you can get by with just the power base of, banners and seats just to get you there. This deck's also one of the first decks that I started playing when I started to get serious about, playing Eternal properly and getting on the ladder trying to get to Masters. Although it was a very differently looking deck back then. We had Staff of Stories in there. You can accidentally attack with if it's got power, which did happen every now and then because you used to have a card called Inspire, which I'll bring up. Now the Primal Carrier decks used to play Inspire because this used to cost 1 before it got nerfed, and this gives the top unit or weapon of your deck +1/+1, and I have accidentally given a Staff of Stories +1/+1 and then attacked into an enemy unit that killed it, which was quite upsetting at the time, but it's funny to look back on. But overall, this deck is pretty much ageless, and it's been around since set 1, and it's likely only to get better. So this is a really nice thing to sort of build towards, and that's something that Hooru Control can do for you. Also, because this is like a armory deck, so to speak, this is perhaps a lot more of a comfortable place to be. If you've played Hearthstone and you're used to playing Warrior, maybe this is the sort of deck that you want to play. It does also have some mage elements too, because it's got cards like the Hailstorm dealing 3 damage to its unit, and the Torch that's dealing 3 damage to a unit. But, you know, this putting together sort of like the mage and the warrior playstyle is pretty nice, because when I played Hearthstone, those were the two classes that I liked the most. So perhaps that's why I went more towards this style of deck. But overall, Hooru is probably a good spot to be in right now, because with set 4, Hooru is only going to stand to get better as well, because you do have access to the Hooru crest there, as Hooru doesn't have one right now. It's not in the original 5. But that will be coming with set 4, which should be in a couple of weeks. So I feel like you could be quite confident in building these decks and playing with them just on the ladder, as it doesn't take much to make these existing decks just a little bit better, just while you're trying to figure out what you'd actually like to play that's new. And as I said previously, this deck has been a deck since set 1, so this can only get better. Okay, so thanks for watching. I've been That Results, and this was the Hooru Control new player guide. Thanks for watching. I'll see you around.